which then have to be unpacked, understood, resolved. That's what he calls astronomy in the Republic. Different than we call it. Matter of fact, he says, our astronomy goes real contrary to the way in which astronomy is discussed by among the adepts who then look to the heavens. He said, we don't look to the heavens. Said, that's what they do, we don't do that. We want to see, we want to study it in the same way that geometry is studied, because we're interested in the problems encountered in that realm. So therefore, the problems that are discovered in this process are called astronomy. The problems that are surfaced is called the contemplation of this activity. It's called geometry. And that's nothing other than doing this one after all as the one. Because would you not agree, as this process goes on, what's the final end? Oneness. Therefore, they're becoming one. Therefore, if they're becoming one, they may catch a glimpse in this rather quite interesting and fantastic problem, which is what, after all, is the nature of the one in itself. Huh? Rather interesting, isn't it? Now I got a quote I wanted to read you. This is on Providence and Fate. He talks about trying to get away from the fated existence. It's the tumult, the being caught up in that fated condition. He says, when you separate yourself from that, see, when all of those inferior powers are settled, when they're now at rest, he says, when all of those things are at rest, thank you. When all those powers are at rest and they no longer exist with any confusing, fogging power, not engaged in many things they're accustomed to being, then he says, energy is converted to herself. Remember, energy is always here, the mean. Energy then is converted to herself. It's not dissipated in this fated, bound manner. Energy is now converted to herself. Soul now can see her own essence, turning about, Lucia, and the powers she contains, and the harmonic ratios which she consists of, and the many lives of which she is the completion. See, many lives she's the completion, because you're going to the archetype. Rediscovers herself to be rational in a rational world. The image indeed of the natures prior to herself from which she departed now enters the paradigm, the archetype, you see, which is prior to her and over which she presides. To the energy of the soul, to get that going, see, the energy by which this is affected, to this energy of the soul, my friend, arithmetic and geometry, the mother of your art, are said to contribute much. And he says, because it purifies the intellect from the rational forms of life with which it is surrounded, fated, and led to the incorporeal comprehension of forms. Finally, he says, led to the lustrations of the future mystics and to the most sacred of mysteries. So if these energies of the rational soul then are manifested, let us then survey her now running back to the highest intelligence through which she sees her sister souls in the world, which are allotted the heavens and the whole of generation according to the will of the Father. And she, being apart, desires the contemplation of them. She, that's the soul always, sees the intellectual essences and the orders of what are. So therefore, the soul is led upward by intellectual surveys to truly mystical intuitions of the supramundane gods. What's she doing? You see, he's got the same model, and he's saying as this goes on, as these archetypes become the very gods in the Greek world, Zeus, Apollo, and things like that, you become one to it. That's the model. Well, that's this. You're returning to the model of whatever it is. Therefore, at that moment, you are gaining a direct insight into the fullness of that model. And since that model is the very thing that molded and shaped you willingly with your own freedom to go into this, it brought about your own goodness by following something that was good. Ah, Providence. So this is a spiritual system, a philosophical system, highly condensed for the evening, which has a spiritual basis, since it's involved a kind of practice where one's whole life becomes the arena through which you practice and in which you practice and develop and cultivate reason and understanding of what's chaining you, where you focus on the pattern. See, this is a pattern and the model is a pattern, only this is a pattern where you're locked in by nature, by your own interior forces. This is one that's lofty with which you can emerge. So therefore, it's a spiritual or philosophical practice that's providential, that therefore is the basis for a spiritual way of existing without being holy. Wait a minute, what? Yeah, you don't have to be holy. Hey, it requires a different kind of sacrifice, not the same kind of sacrifice. The behavior will be changed, but not because of some acceptance of certain vows or commandments. There's no belief involved in it. There's no binding belief that's going to save you. This has nothing to do with belief. Because this is a way of seeing whether your beliefs can be confirmed in your own experience. Therefore, it is a spiritual system that has the same goals, highest goals, but it's not a religion. Therefore, it's a religion of no religion based upon the idea of providence, which is what I wanted to talk about tonight. Thank you.
I have a question. This providence, is that personal for each person? Each person's providence is his own unique?
Because each person is a result of all of the particular forces that lock them, though the same forces